At the beginning of the movie, we see Maverick repairing a plane in his garage. Maverick, a skilled test pilot and captain in the U.S. Navy, is soon visited by his friend Hondo. Hondo informs him that he must test a high-speed aircraft and push it to Mach 10. Excited by the challenge, Maverick immediately begins preparing for the test. Hondo warns him not to exceed Mach 10, as the aircraft has not been designed for such extreme speeds. However, Maverick is known for his rebellious nature and his refusal to strictly follow the rules. He takes off and pushes the plane to Mach 9, then gradually reaches Mach 9.8, astonishing everyone monitoring the test. Against all expectations, Maverick successfully pushes the aircraft to the coveted Mach 10. After reaching Mach 10, everyone at the control center is thrilled with Maverick's achievement. However, true to his daring nature, Maverick refuses to stop there and attempts to push the aircraft beyond Mach 10. The extreme speed causes the plane to overheat. Flames erupt, and the aircraft ultimately explodes in midair. Everyone assumes that Maverick has been killed in the crash. Surprisingly, Maverick survives the fall and appears completely unharmed. He wanders into a nearby restaurant, disheveled and exhausted, drawing the attention of all the customers, who stare at him in shock and confusion. Without saying much, Maverick quietly leaves the restaurant and reports to Admiral Hammer. Hammer, astonished by his skill and audacity, tells Maverick, "I have never seen a pilot like you in my life. Even at the age of 40, you've shot down 3 enemy aircraft. But despite your talent, you constantly break the rules of the Navy." Hammer looked at Maverick and said that was why he was still a captain, and if he had followed the rules, he would have been sitting in his chair that day. Maverick simply smiled and replied that he was happy where he was, that he loved his work, and that he enjoyed flying. Hammer then informed him that he had been reassigned to Top Gun, though he admitted he didn't know the exact details of the mission, and said that he would understand everything once he got there. Following his orders, Maverick arrived at Top Gun and met the commanding officers, Cyclone and Warlock. Cyclone praised Maverick for his exceptional flying skills, and then revealed the purpose of his assignment. An enemy nation had built a nuclear facility to enrich uranium, posing a severe threat to global security. If the facility remained operational, it could eventually produce weapons capable of global destruction. Stopping it was now a top priority for the Navy. That is why the Navy must stop the enemy at all costs. The nuclear plant is hidden inside an underground bunker at the end of a narrow valley. GPS signals do not work in this area. The valley is heavily defended with surface-to-air missiles that can detect and attack any fighter plane immediately. In addition, the enemy has 5th-generation fighter jets and many supporting aircraft ready for defense. Maverick points out that if GPS worked in the valley, the mission would have been much easier. But without it, the task is extremely dangerous. To complete the operation, 4 fighter jets must fly together into the valley to destroy the plant. After that, they must avoid the enemy's missiles and escape safely. Maverick realizes that this mission will be incredibly difficult and risky. Cyclone asked Maverick if the mission was even possible. Maverick then asked when the mission would start. Warthog replied that it might start in 3 weeks, or maybe earlier. Maverick said it had been a long time since he had flown an F-18 jet, and he did not know who would fly the other 3 planes with him. Warthog and Cyclone then explained that Maverick was misunderstanding. He would not be flying the mission himself. They had called him as an instructor to select the best pilots and train them for the mission. Maverick thought about this for a while. Cyclone then told him that 12 Top Gun graduates had been recalled, and Maverick needed to choose 6 pilots for the mission. When he looked at the list, he saw Bradley's photo. Cyclone noticed Maverick's reaction and asked what he was thinking. Maverick realized that Bradley, the son of his late wingman Goose, would also be part of this mission. Maverick is blamed for the death of Bradley's father. Because of this, he feels that Bradley is still angry with him. Cyclone told Maverick that he had never been his first choice, and that he had called him there because Iceman had requested it. He added that Iceman believed he could teach the Navy important skills. After hearing this, Maverick leaves and goes to a bar. He sends a message to Iceman saying that the young pilots are not ready for this mission. Iceman replies that he already knows they are not ready. That is exactly why he wanted Maverick to train them. Later, all the Top Gun graduates gather for Maverick's first class. Warlock begins by explaining the mission. He tells the group that only the best pilots will be selected for the mission, while the others will remain as backups. At that moment, Maverick entered the room. The graduates looked at him with disapproval because everyone knew that Maverick had a reputation for breaking Navy rules. For this reason, they did not speak to him politely. Maverick began his class by picking up the Navy training manuals. He told the students that they must have already read those books. Hangman jokingly replied that they had. Maverick then added that even their enemies had probably read those same books. After saying this, he threw the books aside, surprising everyone in the room. Maverick explained that completing this mission would require hard work and skill. He then announced that he would test their abilities to see who the best pilot was. After that, he instructed everyone to get into their fighter jets for training. Maverick told them that they would start with simple dogfight exercises to practice their skills. The training exercise required the pilots to engage in mock dogfights without using bullets. Maverick explained the rule that whoever lost would have to land and do 200 push-ups. All the graduates accepted the challenge. He also instructed them that no one was allowed to fly below 5,000 feet. The exercise began, and Maverick quickly defeated the students one by one. Each time they lost, they returned to the ground to do their push-ups. Finally, Maverick also defeated Bradley, which made him very angry. Bradley did his push-ups silently, clearly frustrated. Bradley's teammate approached him and asked why he was upset. He reminded him that they had lost to Maverick because he was the best pilot. Bradley replied that he wasn't angry about losing, but because Maverick had blocked his Navy application 4 years earlier. When Phoenix asked why Maverick had done that, Bradley had no answer. Later, Maverick gathered the students and explained the mission in detail. He told them that the entire mission had to be completed in 3 minutes. He warned them that time was their greatest enemy and flying through the valleys would be extremely dangerous. One small mistake could trigger the enemy missiles, and if that happened, they would all be killed. Maverick spoke to the Iceman with a heavy heart. He said that what he had done to Bradley's father, Goose, was the reason Bradley was still angry with him. He added that he had thought Bradley would have forgiven him by then, but he hadn't. The Iceman gently replied that there was still time. Maverick shook his head and said that the mission was less than 3 weeks away, and Bradley was not ready at all. Iceman encouraged him to teach Bradley. Maverick hesitated and said that Bradley ignored everything he said. He added that he didn't want anyone else to die because of him, and told Iceman that he needed to stop Bradley from joining the mission. Iceman looked at him firmly and told him to forget the past and train Bradley, saying that was the reason he was there. Maverick sighed and said that if he sent Bradley on the mission, he might not come back. He explained that he had already lost his father and couldn't bear to lose him too. But if he didn't send him, Bradley would never forgive him. Either way, he said, he would lose him. Iceman placed his trust in Maverick and told him that the Navy and those young pilots needed him. He said that was why he had called him there, and added that he had complete faith that Maverick would train them well. After talking to Iceman, Maverick returned and resumed training the junior pilots. He explained to them that teamwork was the key to success. All 4 planes would have to fly together into enemy territory, and each pilot would have to trust their team completely. Their survival and the success of the mission depended on this trust. Maverick then described the attack plan. The target was located between 2 mountains, and it was extremely small, only 3 meters wide. In the final stage, the pilots would have to dive into the valley, position themselves quickly, and strike the target in the shortest possible time. The first 2 planes would attack using laser-guided bombs, creating an opening. This would allow the second pair of planes to fire and finish the job, destroying the target. Maverick reminded them that precision and timing were everything in this mission. Maverick continued to explain the mission. He said that after the first and second strikes, the mission would only succeed if every team hit their target. If any team missed, the mission would fail. He told the pilots that escaping the valley would be very difficult. During the climb, the G-forces would feel like 1,000 kilograms pressing on their bodies, making it hard to breathe or think. They would need courage and focus to survive. Even if they escaped the valley, enemy missiles would be waiting for them, and one mistake could be deadly. Phoenix then asked Maverick if they could control it. Maverick replied that success would depend completely on the pilot's skill. After explaining the risks, Maverick began practical training. The students followed his instructions and tried to fly exactly as he had guided them. During training, the pilots still missed the target. While climbing out of the valley, one graduate lost consciousness, and his plane almost hit the ground. He regained control just in time. Soon after, Phoenix's jet caught fire. He tried to put it out, but the flames only grew. Phoenix ejected with his parachute, and the jet crashed into the mountain. Later, Bradley reported that Phoenix and his partner would stay in the hospital overnight, but would be fine by the next day. He admitted that he had never experienced such a dangerous situation. Maverick reminded him that if he kept flying like that, accidents would happen. Bradley replied angrily that it was easy for Maverick to say, as he didn't have a wife or children, and no one would cry for him. Maverick told Bradley to go home and rest for a while. Bradley became angry and asked why Maverick had stopped him from getting into the academy and why he had blocked his career. Maverick replied calmly that Bradley had not been ready at that time. Bradley shouted and asked if he had not been ready to fly like Maverick. Maverick shook his head and said no. Bradley had not been ready to break the Navy's rules. He explained that in that job, if a pilot hesitated, they could die. He added that there was no time to think. One just had to act and trust their partner. Bradley glared at him and said that he shouldn't talk about trust, as his dad had trusted him, and look at what had happened to him. Hearing this, Maverick felt broken and emotional. Around the same time, the Iceman passed away, leaving Maverick even more saddened. Maverick felt even more upset after Iceman's death. Soon after, he faced another problem. Cyclone called him to his office and told him that he was dismissed from the mission, and that they would assign another instructor. He added that Maverick could leave then. Maverick left the room, angry and disappointed. Cyclone then went to the classroom with the graduate pilots. He announced that Captain Maverick would no longer be their instructor. He explained that for the mission to succeed, the team would now fly over the mountains and would have 4 minutes to complete the mission. The students were shocked. Flying over the mountains meant that enemy missiles could easily detect them. Everyone knew this plan was extremely dangerous and could get them killed. Cyclone refused to listen to anyone. Suddenly, he saw a fighter jet flying over the training area. It was Maverick. Maverick spoke over the radio and said that he would complete the mission in 2 minutes and 15 seconds. He then flew the exact mission route, hit every mark, and finished the course successfully. Everyone watching was shocked and impressed. Cyclone now realized that the mission was possible. He called Maverick and said that he had proved there was no better pilot than him, and that he would lead the mission. Maverick felt relieved and proud. He selected 4 pilots for the mission. Then Cyclone told him to choose his wingman for the operation. Maverick chose Bradley as his wingman. Hearing his name, Bradley looked surprised and nervous. Soon after, the team took off for the mission. For the first time, Bradley tried to speak to Maverick in the air, but could not find the words. Maverick encouraged him by saying that he could do the mission. Hearing this gave Bradley some confidence, and he focused on flying. The team entered enemy territory and quickly realized the mission was even more dangerous than expected. They had to fly through narrow mountain valleys, while enemy 5th-generation fighter jets patrolled above. Missiles and radar systems were also ready to attack any intruder. Seeing all this, Bradley became nervous and fell behind Maverick and Phoenix. Maverick spoke to him over the radio and said that it was time to show them who he was and what he could do. Hearing this gave Bradley the courage to continue. Bradley gathered his courage and flew faster through the mountains. Maverick crossed the first valley, aimed at the target, and destroyed it. Watching from the command center, Cyclone and Warlock were pleased. Bradley then hit his own target successfully and began to climb the second valley. Suddenly, he saw enemy missiles approaching and fired back in defense. Maverick instructed that they all needed to attack those missiles together. The team followed Maverick's lead, but one missile locked onto Bradley's jet. At the last moment, Maverick flew in front of the missile, and it hit his plane instead, causing a massive explosion. Everyone believed Maverick was dead. Cyclone ordered the team to return to base, but Bradley refused. He said he would not leave without finding Maverick. Cyclone tried to stop him, fearing for his safety, but Bradley continued his search. Meanwhile, Maverick was alive, lying in the snow deep inside enemy territory. Suddenly, an enemy fighter jet appeared overhead, searching for him. The enemy jet spotted Maverick, forcing him to run for cover. He hid behind a fallen log, but the enemy kept firing at him. At that moment, Bradley arrived and shot down the enemy jet, but his own plane was also destroyed. He parachuted safely to the ground. Maverick asked him why he had come there and said that he shouldn't risk his life for him. Bradley replied that Maverick had saved him from the missile without thinking of himself, and that he couldn't leave him behind. Together, they headed to the enemy base and found an old AK-14 fighter jet. Bradley asked if it could still fly. Maverick was confident and said he could pilot it. They reached the damaged runway and climbed into the old plane. Taking off was difficult, but Maverick refused to give up. He said that they would get out of there, and he successfully launched the plane into the air, beginning their escape from enemy territory. At the command center, Cyclone and Warlock noticed an old AK-14 fighter jet approaching. They immediately realized it had to be Maverick, because only he would attempt something so risky. The Cyclone ordered the jet to return to base. Meanwhile, enemy fighter jets appeared behind Maverick and Bradley and started attacking. Maverick fought back, but it was very difficult because he was flying an old plane, while the enemy had advanced fifth-generation jets. Even so, Maverick managed to shoot down a few planes. He thought they were finally safe, but one last enemy jet chased them. Maverick tried to fight back, but he ran out of bullets. The enemy locked on and was about to fire. At the last moment, Hangman arrived and shot down the enemy plane, saving Maverick and Bradley. They returned safely to base, landed the jet, and hugged each other in relief. At that moment, Maverick and Bradley finally became friends. If you have enjoyed the recap, hit like and subscribe for more amazing stories.